this just for the proposed budget?
This is, well, it's all the worksheets for the hearings and all of that stuff that they, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But the proposed budget is the
Proposed
only thing
budget.
that has to be posted by August 15th, yes. And so once we have that proposed, but we still have to have a form that goes on the front of it that they haven't finalized.
I don't have to say, I know what you think, Mike.
So these are no good.
Right. You're up there.
Y'all gonna
I didn't bring it over anyway, so I did. Forgot.
I guess Vance is on his own.
All right, you're the only one here, Vance, I guess, so far, so. Who's requested to speak this morning, Jennifer?
Vance, Michael, district judge.
The district judge, if you can.
And has got clerks, Cheryl, Christine, and ag extension.
Right here's the sheriff's.
Oh, it's. What number is sheriff?
560 or 512.
What page?
No.
I get a copy of this, but
Yes, yeah, we just need that.
see the district, surely S is passing. JP's.
560, that's the sheriff.
It's on page 13 and
Jail is page 13, sheriff is page 14 and 15.
Did y'all hear that? Jail is 13, page 13. Sheriff is page 14, 15.
Correct, bottom page 14.
Three pages of that stuff. 13, 14, 15.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
two separate.
constables in there too.
We can make this simple, y'all just give me everything I ask for.
There you go.
We'll just give you a checkbook too.
Which would you like to talk about first, the jail or your?
I just want to combine them both together, if that's fine with y'all.
Maybe we have to flip between pages to keep up with you.
It's just, basically, I'm just going to discuss the salaries as I have been for the past several years. Y'all know that we've been working hard to get our salaries up there where we need to be, and I appreciate y'all working with me. We've made some great leaps and bounds. This year, I'm not gonna throw a bunch of numbers at y'all, I'm gonna make one simple request, and that is the $2,000 per year raise that we currently got in this budget year. I'm requesting that amount be bumped up to a new starting pay effective October the 1st.
So instead of it being a cost of living, you want to increase the base pay.
Yes, like my deputies, they were increased this current year from 38,261 to 42,251. And the jailers were increased from 32,000 to 34,000. Now, if we can apply that to the starting rate, then we're making a great step. The money's already there. It's not going to be anything additional. I've got 13 positions total that have, since that $2,000 year raise last year, have been vacated. So I've replaced those individuals at the lower rate of 38,261. So I'm just requesting that the raise that we got this year be added to the starting rates for the deputies and the jailers. And that's going to be $2,000 per position.
And that's a wash because the money's already there.
That money is there, yes, sir, it's already budgeted. As far as additional requests, you are aware that I went to 12-hour shifts a couple of years ago with y'all's approval. Things are going great. Because what that has done is created 4 different shifts, A, B, C, D shifts. The way I'm structured now, I have a lieutenant who's over all those shifts, of course, and then I have a sergeant who's over all those shifts, and then I have a corporal that's just kind of over the shifts when he's on duty. And so what I'd like to do is do away with that corporal position, give him another $100 a month raise and make that a sergeant position. That way I will have a sergeant with rank every day, every shift I will have that supervisor that can make split decisions, and he's getting reimbursed for it. So that's just an additional $1,200 to my current budget. To do away with the corporal position and add that sergeant position. And that'll give me supervisors.
Yeah, I've actually, it's funny you mentioned that, just a few weeks ago in a conversation with our insurance carrier, TAC, they wanted to make sure that we had a designated supervisor for our law enforcement on 24 hours. It has to be somebody designated. So it's excellent timing that you mentioned that. I told him I couldn't answer the question.
Yeah, it's getting us one step closer. It is. That'll be all but the weekends.
That's what I was gonna ask, that gives each of those 4 shifts a supervisor.
Yes, technically it will, because my sergeants work evenings. I mean, there's gonna be coverage like weekend days where there's no supervisor until 3 o'clock. But that sergeant will be on call for the days that he's on duty, 24 hours a day. So,
So they can call it out.
yes. And technically, we're gonna have supervisors available, which we do now, but this will make them responsible for 2 shifts. Each of them will have 2 shifts that they're responsible for, the day shift and the evening shift that they work.
So the days he's on, he's also on 24-hour call. He needs to be, okay.
Pardon?
So for the days he's actually on duty, he's also on 24-hour call.
And the days he's off, he won't be on call. This other sergeant that I'm on to correct will be on call 24 hours a day. So it gives him a little break also. And again, that's $1,200 per month. I mean, per year, sorry. And that's all I've got with the salaries. And of course, if y'all give any employee raises, I would like for my employees to receive those on top of this $2,000 starting pay, if y'all decide that we can approve that. But I really request that that be done. And we're going to get a step closer to where we need to be. And then I think next year I'm going to try to hit y'all with some numbers and create a step program for my deputies and my jailers. That way I can hire people with experience. The way it is now, I can't get a 3 or 5 year officer from Garland PD because they're taking a $10,000 to $12,000 cut pay. And I've been recruiting for them pretty hard, and I've had lots of interested people, but they just can't take the cut and pay. And for these younger officers, our benefits are amazing, but that doesn't mean nothing
I understand.
to them folks.
So,
Just to clarify, what you're asking for is your base pay to be set at what the current rate is. And then that's for anybody new that comes in. And then for your current employees, the 2,000 or 5%, or whatever the commissioners.
Yes, and I have a few employees in the jail that's making the 2,000 less because they weren't here to get the raise, and that position didn't get the raise, the person did. So that's minimum, $2,000. And I've got 2 deputy positions open right now, and 4 jail positions. I'm just getting up. Ain't happy. It ain't just me, it's state laws.
well, I don't think it's just law enforcement either. It's every kind of position.
And my next deal, I'm asking for an additional personnel. It's going to be my part-time med clerk. That job has gotten so busy that it's going to require a full-time person to take care of it. Our last legislation, not this current one, but 2 years ago, they implemented this continuity of care where the medical records now have to go with the inmates to TDC. So my med clerk is having to try to get all that stuff prepared. And it's a full-time job. And what I'm proposing is I will pay the salary out of my commissary fund and fund account of $29,000 per year. I'm gonna ask y'all to pick up the fringe benefits, which is approximately $32,671
All in.
So that makes that person 60,
full-time.
64. Is that what that
We-
takes?
we are-
Is that a registered nurse or something? Sorry.
No.
Where's the part-time funds paid for now? The general
My
fund?
commissary.
Okay, you already paid for that as well.
But if y'all can't do that, then I'm gonna have to come back and hire at least another part-time person. And I think that's gonna cause confusion and chaos, having 2 people trying to do the same job in different ways, but we'll deal with it if we need to. 4 vehicles, $176,712.
What did we buy you last year?
Pardon?
Did we buy 4 last year?
4, yes, sir.
I'd like to stay with continuity with that.
Are you gonna be able to get 4? You can't
Sure,
really
well.
get any.
We still haven't got the vehicles we ordered
I
last
was gonna ask you about the jail van we approved.
year. Can't even order it until next week.
Go try to just go buy some grade 4 gravel. Vulcan, I can't get it.
Any questions for the sheriff
They still haven't really given us from last year.
or the van? I saw the old one when I was there yesterday.
So I got one that's supposed to be here in 2 weeks, a Tahoe. I've had 2 wrecked, I got 2 down, so we're just begging and
They're
wondering.
still building vehicles,
Yeah.
but they've got a limited number of chips. And when they get through with one, they insert a chip and drive it to the parking lot and pull the chip and go move another. So they're building vehicles, but you can't get them. You can't drive them.
Chips.
Go
I
back
guess
and
the
forth.
chips are made overseas.
No, I think they're made here, but the one factory that makes them burned. And they haven't had it come back to online yet. That's my understanding.
I've heard
Story I
stories
heard,
that we were sorting
chips was
inside
like
and outside, but we're gonna allow it to have more inside. That's what I've heard.
And to alleviate the new budget y'all are trying to work on, I could possibly take a closer look at my operations budget and buy one of those vehicles now out of my operations. We've been doing that the last couple of years
As long as
to take a
we,
little pressure off. Y'all trying to,
is that,
Back and back, it's gonna be good.
yeah, exactly.
You gotta get your name in the hat though.
May have to go back to horses, reckon, or
So we're putting in a letter end of this week on our intent to purchase.
is that specifically the Tahoe you're
Strictly at the top is for the.
when I was in New Mexico, I noticed they've been using, I didn't even know Dodge Durango made a police package, but apparently they do. I saw that a lot of them use, it. First time I've ever seen them. I don't know how hard those are to get.
I haven't seen any information.
They had a lot of trouble with their Chrysler products.
Yeah, we had trouble with them, Charger.
So they're gun shy.
This was not SUVs when I saw them. Any other questions for the sheriff? Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all, appreciate it.
Next up is our district attorney, and come on up, Michael. And I want to give you all some information before he even begins. I was not aware, I don't think any of us were when we were talking about the additional position he requested was a temporary. It would not be absorbed into our permanent budget. And I have gotten written confirmation, by the way, from the U.S. Treasury Department that we can use the America Recovery Funds to fund an assistant as long as he's got that person strictly doing COVID-related delays. The only thing they put on there, Mike, is they recommended that we do it 1 year at a time, renewing year to year. That was the only caveat that they, other than that, and I do have the money in that grant to fund that if y'all choose to do so. You remember all in how much that was, benefits and all?
I didn't calculate the benefits, I just kind of took the base, and then.
You were gonna start somebody at 65 if I recall.
Yes, that's it for that. I mean, I didn't know if y'all had copies or
I don't have
not,
it with
so
me.
I was just making sure.
That's right.
Once you just get it.
65 is kind of low for an 88, isn't it?
It is, but, you know,
I got to share.
that's the struggles that we deal with. You know, just kind of echo what Vance said, whenever you're trying to attract talent, there's really 2 issues that we face here. Number 1, our locale, and number 2, our salary system. The locale makes it especially challenging unless you have somebody that actually lives here, that's from here, that wants to practice here, and, you know, is a licensed attorney. If you can find somebody that fits those bills, you know, then you got a chance of, you know, getting somebody in a lot easier. But those are few and far between. I've certainly recruited folks. I've gone after people in other jurisdictions and recruited them because I know they have some hometown connections. But that's always the major thing is trying to, you know, sell them on the ideal that Brown County is a wonderful place to raise a family, come here, that kind of thing. That's always been my pitch, is to play up our stronghold here. It's a smaller community, got a beautiful lake nearby, top of the hill country, you know, give them the whole sell. And you know, have them come out here and hopefully convince them that, you know, this is someplace they want to live. The second part of that is always trying to be competitive on the salary structure.
Well, I didn't mean to take you out of order, I just wanted to, on your list, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew, because I did not understand, and I don't think any of us did, that you were asking for that to be temporary only.
Right. So I recently attended the elected conference that was postponed from last December. They held it in June. And when I was there, part of the conference is kind of a forum where you discuss issues that are related in all the offices. And of course, the major issue that, a lot of folks are facing right now is the COVID backlog that now you're seeing on your dockets. And so what a lot of these counties have already worked on budgets and have requested and have received approval for additional hires under the American Relief Act for assistance specifically to come in and help address the backlog of cases. One of the things that's been thrown around here between the district judge and the county court of law is to have the county court of law also start hearing jury trials of the felony level so that we can kind of get two trial courts going, hearing those cases so we can address the backlog and get a lot more jury trials going at the same time. However, I think, as part of that, when you start talking about doubling up on your workload, we really need that extra body in there to assist in prepping cases. Our dockets sometimes are really large. They're not always manageable numbers. And so when you have to prep 30 or 40 cases for a docket, when you start splitting that between, that's still a huge number of cases. It far exceeds the American Bar Association recommendation for caseloads per person.
What is that, by the way?
At 25. So there ain't no way in the world we're ever going to get close to 25. I can tell you that right now. That's just unrealistic for us. So, however, I think that we can certainly do better. And just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about, I didn't just come down here to talk and not give you some hard facts about it. And so I went back and, as y'all probably know, each month the district court prints out the official district court monthly report that gives statistics for how we're doing in terms of our docket. I'm sure the county court does the exact same thing. And so really I looked at two areas to give you kind of a concrete idea. The first was we first started hearing about COVID back in March of 2020. And so really the first full month that, COVID was on our plate was that following month in April. And so when I looked at our docket numbers for April, I look at active cases because that's the most important part to us because those are the ones that are on our plate currently. There's an inactive case status as well for those that are not yet on the active docket, and we're not as concerned with those because they're, quite frankly, we're not working those cases at that point until they become active. And so looking at our active numbers back in April of 2020, we were sitting at 371 cases, not bad. And so then at the time I started working on this docket, I pulled the most recent, which was May of 2021. And so you look at that, and then our active case number is now 656. Okay, so you got to remember that time period whenever this started really coming on. Judge Ellis pumped the brakes pretty hard. We had to put a stop on what we were doing in person. Couldn't have any in-person trials, anything like that. In fact, we were having no jury trials. And so we were doing as much as we can, by way of Zoom. But, as things go, the defense bar's desire to get cases pled under those circumstances, dwindled to near nothing. They weren't really incentivized. And so we didn't move as much cases as we'd like to. We even, took the position of having COVID wholesales, to try to move these cases and try to keep up with the docket issues being created by, not being able to have active court. And as good as we did, we still managed to have an increase. So if you look at our April 20 numbers versus our May, from the time that you look at those, we were at 176.81% capacity compared back to April 20. So that's a 76.81% increase in our active case docket. That's a big number. We've almost doubled. So it's added an additional 285 cases on top of what we already had. So there's no doubt that there's a huge backlog that we have to chisel back down and try to address that. The American Relief Act, obviously, having read it, it provides that for expenses incurred in addressing these issues, payments can be made through the end of December of 2024. So that's your maximum period for paying, let's say extend that, that's your maximum period for paying these relief monies toward ameliorating the effects of the code and consequences. So in talking with these other jurisdictions who have approved it, their plan is to hire these folks on a temporary basis. They're going to know up front that when they get hired, it's for a limited duration to address these COVID cases. And so there's no expectation that, at the end of that, I'm going to come to you and say, hey, we really like this person, we want you to absorb this person. It's kind of like when I had the victim assistance coordinator that was purely grant funded and the county was administering the grant. When we set that up, one of the things that y'all asked me to do is promise that, if that grant should run out, that I will come to you and ask that you absorb that person. And at some point, we did have a hiccup along that lines, and I had to let Michelle Cox go. And I was asked, are you going to go ask the commissioners to absorb that? And I said I wouldn't, and I'm not going to, and I didn't. And so the same thing here. I will not come to you and ask you at the end of that period to absorb this person. Man of my word, it's a temporary, just to address that issue. If y'all choose to do that, that's how we'll do it. So we'll bring that person in to help us, try these cases, try to get these numbers back down to pre-COVID numbers. And then, when we've achieved that or gotten to the end of the line to where you can have that person, they're, they've got something to put on the resume, and we'll go from there.
Well, I think it's a great idea, but I'm concerned that it's 65, that you're just not gonna get anybody applying.
It's difficult, but I'm trying to be realistic in the sense that I don't want to throw a number out there that, makes it impossible for me to, get somebody here. So, because I've worked with Commissioners Court long enough, and I know if I throw out a number there that's too high, it probably ain't gonna happen. So I've got to throw something out there that I think that, perhaps we can get across the finish line in addressing the issue. So would I like more money? Would I like it to, be up to 70? Sure, but
Well, let me, and then,
You got somebody in mind already?
I do not. It's gonna be one of those, just gonna have to get out there and hustle and try to find somebody.
what's your next lowest, without giving me a name, what's your lowest paid ADA in your office? Not benefits, just the salary.
I mean, probably Laura Ann.
Well, I didn't ask for a name, I just wanted an approximate salary.
Yeah, if you could look and see, I think Laura Ann's at,
Alex is a level pay.
no, but Alex gets some supplemental funds, so he's actually up a little higher.
Hers is 79.9.
Okay, so
So what,
79?
79.9.
Yeah.
see, I wouldn't go to 80 for starting, but honestly, guys, it's grant money, I'm afraid at 65, it's gonna sit open, and he's not gonna, we're gonna defeat the whole purpose, if y'all
I
include.
think he also threw out 2024.
I'm sorry. could
You threw out the number 2024, so I don't know what you're thinking there. You said
Okay,
that,
so
you stretch that out to 2024.
If you read the American Relief Act, it says that payments can be made pursuant to this plan through the end of December of 2024. So that's your maximum period of time that you can pay out benefits or pay costs that you incur under this Relief Act. Any expenses that you incur prior to the end of December 2024 can be paid out of the American Relief Act.
What was your intent, though? I mean, you said that's maximum. What was your intent? What are you thinking?
Tell you
So what I'm telling you is that the maximum, is 3 years and some change that you can have this person in there. And so that would be the absolute maximum period of time that we can have that employee working and trying cases and so forth. So that's just your maximum period of time that you can employ somebody pursuant to that act and pay them out of those funds.
Now, we are under, Bob's not in here, but we're under a time crunch because the act also requires me to submit to them by August 31st by intent for the first disbursement. So if y'all decide to do this, I've got to know really quick.
Well, I'm still trying to get to the point. Are you going to ask for this for the full 3 years, or just what you're going to try to offer? What are you going to have? I'm just trying to see where you're
I
going
thought
to
it
go
was
with
2
that.
cases where I
Yeah.
tell you the backlog is.
So obviously, I would like to, get the person for as long as I can, with those relief monies out there. It's certainly directly tied to the COVID thing. There's lots of things that you can utilize that money for. Obviously, it's designed to address the issues caused by COVID. This is certainly a direct issue. It was, nobody's fault in the justice system that, we were required to shut it down. The Supreme Court gave the rulings how you can operate during that time period. They shut us down. And so it's not like you can, point the finger at, anybody. It's just a pandemic, and that's the consequences we have to face in doing that.
They recommended that we do it one budget year at a time.
Right.
But it's going to be hard to get somebody to move here for one, if they're not sure they're going to have a job after a year.
Right, and that's part of the selling point.
Sorry,
If I tell them that
Well, he's
it's
asking for 3
upfront
years.
for 1 year, That's an additional factor that makes it a little bit harder, but if they know that, they got, this amount of time, it's a little bit easier to say, hey, well, you've got this, and so.
My suggestion would be to hire them for 1 year at a time, but it's renewable September 1 every year,
Providing the grant money.
providing the grant money is still there.
Sure.
And while, if we have it, and we do have it, we're gonna get it, we could set aside however much we put in there for till December 2024. But it'd be renewable September 1 of every year.
Right. And that's good.
Is that something that?
Yeah.
And I can report I've seen the projected requests from the infrastructure from the water districts and all, and we still have enough left over in our first disbursement that if y'all choose to
For
fund.
1 year's worth, because what's 65 with all the benefits? I mean,
Almost 80 with benefits, retirement, social security.
So that's kind of that issue, in terms of that. If anybody has any more specific questions about, the need or just the statistics or anything, I certainly have those for you guys.
Just want to reiterate though, we even after, I'm not even sure what y'all are going to fund with the water, but even if y'all funded everything the water districts are asking for, with the exception of the Brownwood Water District as well, who want an amount that all the municipalities, everybody going to have to go in to help with. My point is, if y'all choose to do this, we do have the money.
And so we have another, the next year, we have the second half coming and we can designate that part at that point.
But I've got to tell the Treasury Department by the end of August exactly what I'm going to do with the first disbursement.
But it was that conference that actually wanted.
They want a line item by line item. Now, that didn't say that we can't amend it afterwards,
That's
but
what I'm,
Yeah, so we're
that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, and so at that conference, that was the big thing, everybody was talking about, whether we do we not do it, because they were him-hawing about the temporary nature of it. And by and large, most of them just decided, we can't not take advantage of it with the numbers. The numbers are, way skewed, so we gotta do everything we can to try to keep those down. And so it sounded like a lot of the agencies were trying to utilize these monies to do exactly what we asked them to do, so,
it's taking like a year and a half to get to this point, right? So we're about a year.
yeah.
I
year and a
reckon,
half plus.
I like Gary's recommendation. I know that it's just a budget hearing, but I like what Gary said very much, that we put it in condition.
Sure. Absolutely, and that makes sense to me.
I could probably maybe concur with that. Maybe.
Maybe,
With maybe even the addition to on the record, since we're recording it, it's not going to be absorbed into the general fund.
Right, and that's my, reference to you guys. I will not come back to you at the end of it and ask if y'all make this adopted as a permanent person. We understand going into it, it's purely to address these issues and it's temporary in nature.
With that being said, I recommend to everybody that we ask Jennifer to put that back in for 1 year. Again, I'd like to comments on the salary. I'm really worried that it's not going to be able to get anybody for that.
If he thinks he can make it work, that's what he said. That's
Just general fund budget though, since it's out of appropriate funds.
Right. Well,
It's not
you
decided.
keep the balance on our
Right,
COVID funds is where I was going with
Yeah,
that.
okay. Just making sure.
But these other items are not. These other items talk about we.
Right, the other item.
Most of those are-
general budget stuff.
I read most of those are a wash. You're just moving money around.
Some of it's just moving money around. I think that y'all do a good job of trying to give COLA raises, when the budget permits. I know historically, it's somewhere between 3% and 5%. I always just ask for the 3% because I know that that's, a lot of times where it's fallen in the past. But I just, whatever y'all approve for everybody, that's what we approve the same for our employees, with one exception. For me personally, supplemental money, I ask for nothing. I'm fine where I'm at, not asking for an increase.
You're on a different retirement system also.
I'm under the state retirement system, but as far as me personally, I'm not requesting any increase for me. The one thing that I've asked for, the last, I think, maybe 2 years, is it has to do with our travel budget. Our travel budget's set at $1,200. I asked that that be increased to 3,000, basically just by moving some money around, cutting postage from 1,800 down to 500, moving 1,300 over to travel, then additionally take 500 from office supplies and move them to travel. So it's just basically moving monies around to put them in the right categories based on how we utilize them. Postage, we've gotten rid of our postage meter up there, and so that's gotten rid of a lot of expense. And so we're utilizing, just basic stamps, and then the, machine that we have, it's available to courthouse employees. So that would address that issue. The one thing that is always an issue for us is training budget. Now, we have absorbed the training budget for a long period of time, but it's one of those deals to where we've got 5 employees that require yearly training for their respective positions. The sheriff's office is no different. They have a ton of employees that have to have their yearly training, and quite frankly, you can't maintain your certification and work if you don't get your training in. And the attorneys are no different. You've got to have your continuing legal education every year, your ethics education. And so it's a big expense, and so we've been paying that out of culture and so forth, but it's one of those expense items. It's just like every other department that gets a training budget. It's an important aspect, and it's just one of those things that keeps, draining down our other funds that we use to defray other costs. We're one of the few departments that utilize our money to pay for a lot of our own equipment. Our computer stuff, we generally pay for out of our own expenses. Our software, as y'all know, we bought into that custom software, prepaid the maintenance on that for 12 or 15 years, whatever it was. So, we spent a lot of, the monies that we generated just to defray those costs and keep those down from the commissioners as well.
But a lot of that money came from your forfeiture.
Yes, right.
Which other departments don't have.
No,
And you're lucky to,
Yeah.
lucky to have that, lucky to be able to spend it. And we're lucky that you have it to spend. And there's certain things that you can only spend it on.
Sure.
And that was one of them.
Right.
But
With regard to like the sheriff's office, they also get, the forfeiture fund. So they've got forfeiture fund just like we do, because we have to split it with those guys in the PD and any other law enforcement guys. So we're kind of on par on that issue, but, it's still the same thing. It's a annual requirement. We've got to do it, and that should really be one of those things that's kind of built into the budget there. And so we've asked that, if you do fund the training budget, we take that kind of off of our plate there. One of the other things that there's 2 other issues that I put on there and that we've talked about in the past. And with the requirements that were put on us by the Michael Morton Act and having to go the route of having the custom software developed so that we can meet the proof requirements of providing discovery to defendants. So 20 years down the line, when somebody says, hey, they didn't give us that, we can go back and we can prove that we still have that. One of the parts of that is the data retention program. That's how we retain that information over a long period of time and show what we give to everybody. And so that was an additional cost after we had invested into the software thing. Whenever we started utilizing the system, we realized we're going to have, spend some more money on the data retention part because of that aspect. And that runs approximately $3,300 per year. The other thing is that we have to be able to utilize kind of a in-house networking system where you can have your dashboard with communication to all the different employees. So if somebody needs to do something, you can put, assignments up on somebody's dashboard, that kind of thing. And there's in-office communication between all the participants so that everybody knows what everybody's doing at any given time and who's working on what. An important component of that. And if there's any technical questions about that, Alicia's here so she can answer any technical questions about the program. She's been my right-hand person as far as us developing and the implementation of that. And so that's an annual cost of $1,285. So those are the other things that I ask y'all to consider.
So that would increase your budget from last year to this year by how much?
So that's 3,300, 1,285, and 5,000.
9,500,
I think actually the 5,000 is really 4,000 because said let's move 1,000 from office supplies over to.
You've got 4,000.
So it's really 4,000 to the county, and 1,000 just moving monies around.
So 8,500.
4,300, 5,300, that's 5,500, so about $5,500 or so.
Quick question, how we,
Yes,
we're addressing we got a new phone system coming in.
Yes, sir.
Y'all had your own phone system?
Yeah, and we paid for that back then, and that was, I can't remember, $5,000 or something like that. And so it'll be nice to get that new process.
Yeah, we get countless calls that we can't transfer, so you'll be on the same system, so we'll be able to
So
transfer.
that'll be a good thing.
Well, they're saying that we're paying for the system up front, but we used to have everybody pay their portion for their long distance. I'm not sure how we're gonna, we figure how we're gonna split that out.
They're supposed to separate it out.
They're gonna separate it out, so you'll be getting
Do I get some credit since I paid for ours last time?
no more than we get for ours, we pay for it. We pay it.
And Mr. Murray, if they do approve the position, what I do is I've got to submit to the commissioners here probably the next Monday,
Okay.
a request to fund out of that grant money for the water districts. I'll just include yours in there and they can vote it up or down at that time if that works. That'd be a week from today. Stephanie, did you make sure you got that?
Does anybody have any questions on any of that? As always, I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, Mike, before you leave, the reason why is the money's there, and if the court approves, I want you to be able to hire somebody as soon as you can.
Okay, sounds great to
So
me.
I don't want to wait till October 1st.
See the code from our perspective as well. Thank you.
I don't have an order, all I have is one item to hear, so who would like to go next?
I need one.
Do we need to take a restroom break? Well,
we can go on.
you want to go without him
Yeah,
here?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure, okay. Christine, you want to come on up? Our tax assessor collector, for the record, would like to,
Good morning. How are y'all today?
I have some great news for you. I haven't seen you on the microfiche. Well, I haven't seen you to tell you, but I got some real good news.
Okay.
Take me. I just learned it late Friday, so I haven't had a chance to get with you and Sharon and talk to you about it. Now I have those microfiche you let me. I've sent you pictures. I can already give them back to you. They're on my desk.
Yeah.
Who'd like to speak first? Okay, let me change it for the record then. I'll let Cheryl, our district clerk.
Get skipped, I guess.
Okay, so on my budget, it's pretty much everything the same, except for the employee salaries. Just wanted you to keep in mind that because of COVID, we couldn't travel this year for our conferences, and we have to have a certain amount of hours in continuing education. So I would appreciate if you would leave that the same, so, because we're just starting our conferences back. So that's desperately needed. I did attend some conferences virtually, and I did obtain my hours, but I didn't learn near as much virtually as I did in person. And I think you can agree with that.
Yes.
There's just a lot of things missed. And the problem with that is when you're in your office trying to do a virtual conference, you get interruptions, so you miss them. Whereas if you're at the conference, you don't get interrupted and your concentration is on credit.
When is your conference?
We have one in September, I have another one in October, they usually have them 3 or 4 times a year.
So the one for September, you've got the money in your budget?
Yes, I just would appreciate if you would leave that travel. I know there wasn't much this year, but because of COVID, but I appreciate it. Let's see. The main thing was, I just basically left everything the same. I don't know what we're gonna do about the phone systems. I guess we'll just divide it all out. When are those gonna be?
Well, the payment, no, but any long distance calls and all
Right,
will be routed to your budget for your office, but the cost of the phones, we've already absorbed that.
right. Okay, all right.
We pretty much left everything the same.
Okay, if you'll see on a really colorful page in your packet, there is a salary comparison. And I know I present this every year, but I think it's important information. Okay, it just kind of gives you all a gauge as to where we are. And it tells the highest county, the lowest county, and where we are. So they're highlighted, and then the next page is a graph, which kind of is a nice visual for you to be able to kind of see. Basically, I just kind of want to share with you this. Our people are what make this courthouse. Our people, you know, they keep the wheels turning. They're valuable, and so since I've been a district clerk, the budget process has been the same every year. I would like to give you some food for thought this year. Last year was a roller coaster of a year for all of us personally and professionally. COVID happened to our county and it affected our courthouse, our courts, and our processes. We are essential workers. We did not skip a beat. When our courthouse did not allow the public in, we greeted the public outside and gave them curbside service. While we were busy trying to rethink how to handle juries and hearings and transition gracefully, with that in mind, I would like to suggest something a little different this year when it comes to clerk salaries. I've worked very hard every year compiling information to help you as Commissioners Court become more aware of what deputy clerks and chief deputy clerks make throughout the state of Texas for counties our size. While I'm extremely appreciative of everything that you guys do for our staff with the increases in the benefits, we are still one of the smaller paid counties throughout the state of Texas. May I strongly suggest that you think about a level system. To give you a brief explanation of how it would work, we could create levels of clerks throughout the courthouse. The level of pay would be based on the years of experience and job tenure by a salary committee made up of a commissioner, the treasurer, an elected clerk, or tax assessor, and auditor. Level 1 would be classified as 1 to 3 years of experience or work tenure, and the compensation would be the entry-level pay. Level 2 would be classified 3 to 6 years of experience or work tenure, and the compensation would be just a little bit more. Level 3 would be classified 7 to 10 years of experience or work tenure, and the compensation would be higher. And level 4 would be classified as your chief deputies. These staff members would be reclassified when they complete the level at budget time. Last year, I made some requests that I didn't get. However, we were so thankful for what we did. Okay, it's not like we don't appreciate it. We really, really, really do. These ladies and gentlemen are the face of our courthouse, and they have to know laws and processes and have to keep up with the ever-changing legislation. Since I've taken office, their job duties have continually increased. All civil and criminal cases are filed via e-filing, which adds to our workload. There have been increased requirements for jury ordered by the OCA and due to COVID. Please understand that we truly appreciate everything you guys do for us, and it is such a blessing to have the opportunity to work here for Brown County. Our team members are our biggest asset, so that's why I'm asking for you to reconsider and reevaluate the compensation we receive. Thank you. And behind that, there's a level system longevity pay type. I kind of put it in words. Did you want to add anything?
Well, and I'm here because we have all discussed the level system because like for, I've included in my budget request an increase for the longevity pay. Or I have a girl that's one of our ladies has been in our office over 5 years and she makes the same thing as one of my newest girls.
It's been a problem for a long time, it's
It has
just
been.
being able to fund it.
It has.
I think everybody on the court, I don't want to speak for them, but I would like to see this step, but it's just a matter of can we fund it.
And in my budget, I've included just a little of how much we take in. It's just taken together, kind of highlighted, this is just for 6 months. In this short time period, we have taken in almost $5 million. And my request for salaries is, I know that everyone has training, we all have things that we have to do, and it's constantly changing. But the ladies in my office and other offices, they stay busy. It's like a nonstop. You know, any one of you that would like to come sit next to one of them for a day, you know,
It's by far the busiest office in the business,
and I
as
just,
far as pedestrian traffic.
for the ladies that have been there, and have shown commitment and trustworthiness, I think that there should be a level of incentive for them to stay. You know, we've lost employees, all of us have, because we can't compete. Yes, our benefits are wonderful, and I'm thankful for that. That's one of the things that draws people here. Because they are so good. Our insurance is great. You know, there's not another place that I know of that can have this type of insurance coverage for the amount that we have to contribute. But when you go to the grocery store, you know, your insurance does pay for your food or your housing or whatever. But I know that it's a difficult job to budget for the county, and I appreciate everything that you do. But I am requesting an increase, and if for nothing else, if we don't have across the board pay raise, I am requesting some longevity for the 2 ladies that have been here the longest in my office.
Do all our chief clerks make the same?
Yes.
The number 2 in each of your offices, do they all, the salaries the same for all?
Well, yes and no, because, you know, the ones that have been here, of course, longer are in the,
Right, but I mean beginning
Yes.
salary,
yes,
we have it set.
they get a certain percentage off. It's hard, we do realize it's hard for our offices because we have 6 employees each. And it's easier to give a raise to somebody with just one in the office or 2. But it's hard for our office because there's 6 and we realize that. So we appreciate it. I think the step is great because I have worked been there 20 years. And my other chick been there 10. You know, I think a step, and a lot of counties do your longevity pay. You know, it's something we've talked about before in the court, but we've never implemented. I think that the ones it's going to benefit is the ones in our offices because of the amount of employees that we have. Because I have some in the office that have been there long time. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Personally, I like the different levels.
Yeah.
I do that in my precinct. Everybody else does.
It's similar to what the sheriff was asked. I don't know if y'all were in here, but he asked for the same thing, or projected it. I think maybe for next fiscal year, not the one starting October 1st, but maybe that's a project that we can undertake and finally at least make a look and see what we're gonna have to fund for 2023, 2 and 3 is what I'm saying. Because that'd take a while to get everybody on the same page and make sure we follow.
So you're saying basically, we would have to wait a whole other.
Well, no. I'm talking about to implement the STEP program, or to recommend that the court implement a formal STEP program. We're not gonna have time to do it between now and then for everybody. I'm talking countywide. I like what all, like Gary said, I like what all the departments do, and I'd like to see us get on a unified system. County, it's just can we afford it? But we can at least look at the numbers. We don't know until we have them. But that's gonna take some time to compile.
I do think it would help us to keep people because.
And we had a starting salary set for positions, and then so we got a deal like last time when you started somebody else's salary was already there, so that kind of eliminates them being at a higher level than the person who's Already there.
Not necessarily, because every time we lose someone, that money is taken from our budget. And I included last year's budget. Even with the money that was budgeted to us, raising those two longer longevity people would not have costed the county a penny. So it doesn't work like that. Do you do that with your employees when you lose someone?
We don't do exactly like that, no, we don't.
Does everyone lose the money, the funds that are allocated to the office for the office? Or is it just us?
Well, it all stays in the general fund. It's just how we account for it. How it
Well,
all.
then
We'll
we
look at
can't
the teacher
see-
starting, teachers have a starting system and they
We're not
have.
talking about people.
Well, I'm just saying, if you look at other state things, there are ones that do that, they get a new person who started with their salary and have steps, they have a step
I'm
system
gonna
like
talk
we
about
talked.
people that don't involve the county.
The step systems are what state uses on teachers.
I agree with Gary. I think the step systems are fantastic. It's just, I don't know that we have the time to do the research for this coming fiscal year, but we can certainly target it. Notwithstanding what you're asking for, I'm just talking about down the line.
Well, it's food for thought, and like, I know that you said that you raise the salary up and then the person that's been there a little bit longer, it is different, but sometimes it's timing, and this is the thing. If you have a new employee that starts like in September, and then and they get a raise in November or whatever, and they're making the same thing as the girl that's been here much longer. So that's what I'm saying. I know that's your intention, but it doesn't always work that way. And while we are so thankful for everything y'all do for our ladies, gentlemen, we have it.
And while we don't have a step system, we did have a deal, we have a starting pay and we move up each year and there's somebody a year ahead of somebody else. But when you start somebody new, if the person's less salary, you kind of jump past that, which is maybe what you have to do to get around through that.
Well, we do have starting pays, but as you just heard, the sheriff won't put up his starting pay.
I understand that, we've upped y'all, we've upped them, we're trying to up them, we're working. We've upped
Nothing
everything.
like 3,000, nothing like 40,000.
That's where the reason I always get kind of cranky when I see somebody start somebody else's salary they left at.
We have a
But then you
budget.
end up with somebody that's starting and somebody's already been there several years and they get started at the same salary. Well, that's not fair, that person
That
says.
happens a lot.
It does. What happens is, we have budget time, we all present our budget, and then after budget's over, offices come back and ask for more, and they can get more. We don't do that. We come, we present our budget, our requests, and leave it at whatever we're given. We just want for our employees to want to stay here, have proven that they are trustworthy, good employees that want to stay. And we just want to do the best that we can for them in an equal way, where they feel like I've been here 5 years and I make the same thing as a new person.
So the salary adjustment you're asking for would be in addition to the 5% that what cost of living that we're gonna try. So what is that gonna, how much more is that gonna increase? The bottom line, what is the bottom line?
I requested the same thing I did last year. We had funds. It's not team, three, or two.
So it'll be $20,000 more. What I'm talking about is how much is the bottom line more you asking for this coming year's budget above what you have now? I'm sure.
$1,923 for each one of those ladies, which is two. That's less than
$4,000.
Gotcha. It just saves me the time of going line by line and looking at them. So a total increase of 4,000 is all you're asking. I say all that when we get down to pinching pennies, that can get to a lot.
And I'm not personally, I'm not requesting anything, but no change.
Do you have any ideas about what each level would be? If you,
That's what the committee would come up with. That's why I said we have a committee. It's just a thought. I mean, I'm open for suggestions. I just know that this was an idea that we all three kind of talked about. And that's what the committee would do. It would kind of set the salaries of the different ones.
So when I started here, we had that step, that longevity pay, and it was, you got hired and 6 months later, you got a 5% increase. And then when the budget came around, you got whatever, you got 5% for I think it was 5 to 10 years. Or 1 to 5 years, it was 5%. And 5 to 10, it was 3%. And then anything over 10 years was 2% on top of whatever raise they gave. So that gave everybody a little bit of extra money on top of it, so which gave the ones that were here longer, gave them more money. That's how they did it back then. And they just dropped that, cut it out and just did it across the board. But that's how some people, you know what I mean, got my raises through the years that I've been here.
Any questions?
I think Jesse just volunteered for the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
2% change is volunteer for the committee.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, I like
I just
the
remember
idea
that
of
that's how
different
we did it.
And I like the
That's what
idea
you
that what was in the committee. I didn't.
Well, so anybody ever starts, it's gonna be a level 1?
Yes.
Are they gonna come to, well, this person got 12 experiences over here, we won't start them at level 3, we can't hire them at level 1, we're gonna hear that, I'm just saying, is that something?
Well, you know, like I said, the committee is made up of people, and I would think it would need to be approved by the committee. Sometimes you have people that have a lot more experience coming in.
And we do that now. We have a base pay, but y'all can make an exception and hire somebody in.
Right.
If somebody transferred from one department in the courthouse to another,
Don't get me.
they historically been taking their salary with them.
Unless
We did
it's
away with
higher
that.
than one that's already in there.
Right. They can't, yeah.
They can't go above
Is
somebody
that
that's
what
already
you're
in.
saying?
Well, I'm just saying, because we'll have somebody say, well, I got so-and-so I want to hire, but they're real experienced, we need to start them higher than base pay. And then you pop in, okay, that's great, then the other person, well, I've been here 5 years, and they're getting more money than I am. It's just, there's a can of worms you gotta watch for there. And then something else, nobody really thought I had, it was already that.
That started probably the week after we voted on another thing.
But it is, it's, I don't think we're the perfect system anywhere, so there's always a flaw.
Well,
And our intent for the starting, my intent, kind of starting salary, so you keep people so they're not one that gets hired as, that's, in a way, I saw that as a step system, right or wrong.
And that's how it started out, is there's base pay, and then when the raises came around next year, they got a raise. But your base pay stayed, your starting pay stayed the same. So as the year went by, this person would be making X amount of dollars, but the base pay or starting pay hadn't stayed the same. And that kept the differential around. But we started raising the base pay when we gave raises. We would increase the base pay, starting salary, and that's where some of these come in. Is they may be there 5 years, and their starting pay was way down here low, but the starting pay had risen, and that's where they're still at, is staying at the starting pay.
well, and I can't speak for Christine or Sharon, but I think we've all had similar circumstances. I've lost several employees out of my office being hired from other offices because other offices can offer more. And that's rough.
And that's something that we're trying, Larry
Really
worked on
rough.
early on, tried to address that, and they tried to create a basic pay for this position all over the courthouse, this
Right.
position all over the courthouse. So we've done different things and worked at it, but sometimes it works, sometimes it gets bypassed a little bit, sometimes it gets convoluted.
Well, and one thing too is although we're called clerks, please keep in mind that these ladies all have to know laws, and they're very much administrative as well. You know, they have to know laws, they have to know processes, and it's ever changing. So we've got to keep up with the legislature. And these change, and it's just a daunting task sometimes. So it's just,
That could probably be said for nearly everybody in the courthouse, and
Right.
just keep changing.
Right.
So far.
and that's true, that's true.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and please know that we appreciate everything you do.
And we appreciate y'all. We know we would love to fund everything you ask for, and we might be able to, but if we can't, please don't think that we don't believe you deserve it.
Just, you can't win this for fun.
No, ma'am.
Yes, I do. Thank you, thank you.
We need a break, restroom break, folks, or
Been there, done that, thank you very much.
we need a restroom break, correct?
She said, you're saying, you're nodding, yes.
It doesn't matter.
I-
can walk out.
Let's,
whenever.
let's take a 5-minute recess and we'll start again at 15:10.
Is that all right with you, Scott?